Welcome to Life Made Easier podcast with your host, Lesley Pazdzioch, where mental and emotional well-being are found in healing forward by beginning within, where understanding who you are and the divine significance of why you are truly here, unlocking the powerful connection to the sacred sources within to begin intentionally living the life you are here to live and create, living from the inside out.
And welcome to another edition of Life Made Easier podcast. My name is Lesley Pazdzioch. It is such a pleasure again to have everybody here watching this today. And today's guest, I think, is just so perfect for everything that's happening, not only just in the United States, but around the world. His name is Rick DellaRatta, and he has such a powerful, impactful story of experiencing something and finding a way to heal through music. And everybody that knows me knows that I am just music is very powerful for me. It's something that I use all continuously to really help me feel whatever I want to feel so that I can process things. And Rick has when you hear Rick's story, you're going to see how this is obviously too what Rick does as well. And so I think that's one of the things that we have that's in common. And I'm just going to let him share his story because it's a powerful one that I know will really resonate with a lot of people in today's world. So here we go, Rick. So it's all about you now. Welcome to Life Made Easier.
Thanks. We all need our lives to be made easier. So
we do.
Definitely got the right title for that. Where would you like me to start? What would you like me
first I want to share with people, Rick was the person that gave me my first opportunity to be on a podcast. So we have a little bit of history here. It was, quite a while ago, but he gave me my first opportunity, and he's really supported me through this journey. And I'm very, very fortunate to have met you, Rick, and I really thank you. So I think that it's probably best. I'm sure you have like a little tune or something you can use to bring this in to tell your story about where you were in the very beginning and how Jazz for Peace evolved, and in the end, explain where you are now, and then maybe do another little expression of music of that for you.
Okay. The person who gave me my first break was a great jazz trumpeter named Dizzy Gillespie. And one of the songs that Dizzy Gillespie used to play way back in the day is an old jazz standard called Willow Weep for Me. So is that something you'd like me to maybe play for you guys?
If that's what's resonating with your heart and soul, that's what you need to do.
Well, it was requested by our volunteers. So it just happened to be a song that you will see that Dizzy Gillespie, who gave me, since I gave you your first break and Dizzy Gillespie gave me, my first break, and we just happened to have a request by a volunteer of a song that was recorded by Dizzy Gillespie way back in the day, and it's called Willow Weep for Me. Okay, let's see what we get. Willow from me, willow from me, bend your branches green along the stream that runs to sea. Listen to my plea. Listen, willow, and weep for me. Gone my lovely stream, lovely summer dream. Gone and left me to wipe my tears into the stream. sad as I can be. Hear me well, Lord, and weep for me. Listen to the wind, sing the sound. My heart is breaking, and learning to the night to hide her story light, so none will find me sitting and crying all alone. No branches down on the ground. Come by me when the shadows fall. Then you will know me. Weeping willow tree, weeping sympathy, bend your branches down along the ground and cover me when the shadows fall. Bend, oh willow, and weep for when the shadows fall. Hear me, willow, weep for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, where should I go from here? What do you want me to talk about? Do you want me to start at 9/11 or before that?
Yeah. Tell us. So, for everybody listening, one of the significant aspects of what brought Jazz for Peace to light in Rick's life and to light up other people's lives is that Rick is a person that witnessed 9/11 and he experienced it firsthand in a way that um, I've never heard it told before. And so this is what I would like Rick to share, because this was a very traumatic time for him. It was something that emotionally, I mean, it was the processing through this that brought Jazz to peace to life. So Rick, just start out, tell us about that day for you.
Well, I had been taking pictures the day before, and if you ever go to a CD of mine, you can find it on Amazon, called Jazz for Peace. You'll see a picture that was taken of me only hours before the 9/11 tragedy. And basically, it was the day before, and a photographer had asked me if she could take pictures of me for her collection, and she would, provide me with free pictures, and she would keep the negatives for her catalog. And so I had been taking pictures the day before, and the following morning, the phone rang very early for me, because my 9 to 5 in jazz is 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So this was at about 8 a.m. And that was, people don't usually, people know not to call me at that hour. So I was surprised to hear the phone ring. I answered it, and it was the photographer, and she had a job down on Wall Street to pay for her photography habit. And she said, something crazy's going on. I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry to bother you. I know we were, taking pictures yesterday. I said, listen, don't worry about it. No problem. I'll go up on the roof and just see what's going on, and hopefully I can calm her down. But what happened was, I was on a fifth floor walk up, and the roof was right above me. So I just walked out my door, opened this little hatch, walked out on the roof. And then at that point, I was not able to calm her down at all, because really I was it was like walking into a movie screen. It was like if you're watching a movie and just walk into the screen. So I was now part of this tragedy. And I'm, less than a quarter of a mile away from the World Trade Center, looking right at it. And I've never seen anything like it before. So yes, it was a traumatizing experience. But while I was witnessing the events, which I really only witnessed because, like I said, she was down there, and she had heard right away from her boss, because the boss's son actually is who she heard from. So her boss and the boss's son spoke every day, and the boss's son worked in one of the towers. So he calls her, she gets the message, because she's, the relay, and she's, he says, hey, can I speak to my dad? There's something going on at the World Trade Center. So she puts her son in touch with her boss, and that's when she knew something was going on, because her boss told him, listen, as a precaution, why don't you just get out of that building? The other building had been, was on fire. And the boss said, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but why don't you get out, make sure you're safe? Well, he never saw his son again. And I basically, like I said, only minutes after that, I went up in the roof and saw what happened to the second building. I happened to see, that all of a sudden, like, I'm looking at the first building, and the second building explodes. So I was watching everything, and it was very traumatic. But at the same time I'm watching it, words started to come through me and just swirl around. And so I started to write, basically purge the words out of me onto a piece of paper with a pen. And that would enable me to think other words or think other thoughts. But then when words started swirling around again and I couldn't get them out of me, I'd put those. So at the end of the day, all I had to show for that was a poem, which I titled Jazz for Peace. And after reading the poem, I thought it might not be a bad idea for me, since I wrote these words under such traumatic circumstances, to see if they had some special meaning, or if there was something bigger to this than just, a bunch of words on a paper. And so I started trying to live up to the words of the poem. And that's what I've been doing every day since, living up to the words of a poem that I wrote witnessing the events of 9/11 first.
Because we all process things differently. I can't even imagine it. You're standing on a roof. You're watching one building burn in one of the most horrific encounters that the U.S. has ever really experienced. And I don't want to prey on that. What I want to know is, what the hell is running through your mind and your body aside from this poetry? Walking out. I don't know. Trauma to me. This is like the trauma But I mean, what what was going on in your head and your body?
Well, what was really going on for me was I was looking at something that I was like, okay, this is confirmation that, you know, I'm not getting the full message of what's really happening in the world. I mean, all day long, we're getting these subliminal messages to do this and do that and buy products and do this. And I had been doubting the narrative on the news and the media and, all of the stuff because, I knew that there was something bigger and better and greater to life. I knew that there was a spiritual journey because we had so many great people that I looked up to whose life was a spiritual journey, whose life was enlightening, whose life affected other people in profoundly positive ways. And yet, the majority of the people I see are just basically going through the motions and doing as if they are being directed by, your subliminal messages, the advertisements to buy the products, the commercials, the shows that are sponsored by big companies, and it's basically the corporate narrative. And I had been questioning it, and now when I watched that, I knew that, okay, what I've been thinking, maybe my own thoughts were not so crazy after all. If something like this could happen so out of the blue, right amongst the people who are supposed to be, guiding us, in a way that I had been questioning anyway. So, in other words, it was a little bit of a confirmation, like, hey, you should go back to those thoughts that you have been having privately about how music breaks through barriers, it heals people, it has spiritual uses, it has medical uses, it has far more uses than just to sell products and entertain people. And our society is not using the arts and culture to its full capacity. And it can unite people because I had been traveling all over the world and I had been seeing what the difference between people looking at me after I play music for them, then they would look at me as if I just showed up without my music. And now they're looking at whether or not they like America, whether or not they like Americans, all of these preconceived notions. But when they hear me play music, now they know me. And now all of the things that we both have in common are now front and center in our own minds. So, in other words, when a person from a different language, a different culture, a different religion, a different creed, yet music is uniting us because they're feeling my emotion and I'm seeing their reaction, and that we're being united by the things that unite us are now into the forefront instead of in the back with the things dividing us in the forefront. So I looked at that moment and I thought, if there's ever a time for me to tell the truth of what I've been seeing as a musician traveling all around the world, maybe now is that time. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I did have a poem to show for my experience of 9/11.
I think what truly is interesting for me in what you've just said is the fact that you looked. This is what it's all about too. You were noticing the things and people around you reacting to this outer stimulus in their lives, but internally you were like, something's up, something's off with that, right? And then you realize, I think after what I'm hearing you say is afterwards you thought, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to what my inner guidance is telling me about what the world is all about. And I think that's what Life Made Easier is all about. I mean, it's like we have the outer aspects of the world that we get to choose how we're going to let it affect us. We can either let it dictate our lives. We can either let it give us examples of how, of what we see happening, what we want to make a part of ourselves in our lives, or what we don't want to make a part of ourselves in our lives. That was really key. Then I also think that it's interesting when you said, as you're going around the world, you're playing music for people, you found a commonality or a common aspect with others through something that was affecting you internally, right? There was something going on within you. It was like a value or a freedom or a some sort of a common bond that came from within, and it's those emotions. It's the experience. It's you. That's how you came into union, and it was because you took something that was very valuable to you, music, put it out into the world, and drew towards you these experiences that brought you and what would have been a perfect stranger. You brought commonality and greater understanding and some sort of a bond between you. I think that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Now, is
Well,
this how Jazz for Peace started, or was Jazz for Peace before, or did it start after 9/11?
Well, if you really want to go to where it probably started, it would probably be when I was about 6 years old and a piano came on Christmas Eve into the living room of the house I was growing up in. And I started to try to learn that piano just on my own, all by myself. And only today do I realize that what I was doing by going through that and trying to figure that out and listening and playing and listening and playing is I was shooting up activity that is of a higher level of human consciousness. And so then when I started to study music and I continued to improvise and I continued to study, and now I was getting skilled, but I was also, those skills were enabling me to take that ability to play music and expand on music and improvise music to greater heights. Again, I was shooting up my level of human consciousness without knowing it. And so I knew there's something up there because I've recently had a person who's a human consciousness expert on my podcast, and I did a live performance of her for her, and she told me about most of our conscious level is below 200 rating. And that's what's holding us back as a species. And we need to get into 4D, which is above 200, and then 5D, which is above 400. 5D level of human consciousness. That's where we really want to be if we want to solve all their problems. Well, when I improvised for her and she looked at the live improvisation and rated it, she rated it 540 level of human consciousness, only a few degrees away from peace, which is 600. So I'm shooting myself up to areas in the region of world peace without knowing it through the piano. And then I'm falling back down. So when you shoot yourself up there, you know there's something there. So I was constantly being reminded that way up at higher levels of human consciousness, there is something that exists that we need to tap into. It's there. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? And that's the question I want to ask the entire world right now. What are you waiting for? This is worldwide. It unites every single one of us as a species. And when you look at history and you look at the Egyptian pyramids or this or that, this great things that were other cultures, what are you seeing? All you're seeing is something fantastic because it was operating at a higher level of human consciousness. And that's why music and the arts and culture are so important. When you look at a masterpiece by a Van Gogh or a Da Vinci, you're looking at someone who painted something at a higher level of human consciousness that enabled them to create that. So that everybody can understand it. There's not one person that's getting along or not getting along that can't understand these higher levels of human consciousness because they have them in their own societies, in their own history. They have people operating at higher levels of human consciousness. So this is our ticket forward and out of our problems. It's very simple. It's higher level of human consciousness.
I think what's resonating with me when you say this is that I think it's important for us to realize, as you're explaining it, people are like consciousness with our, and I get, consciousness, subconsciousness because I have a double degree in sociology and psychology. and I wanted a master's in, or I wanted to get my master's degree, but they told me I was chasing demons and I just needed to, do something else. So I became a flight attendant. Nonetheless, um, when I think about higher levels of consciousness, I think, to me personally, it meant deeper levels of knowing myself. It meant knowing myself within myself on a deeper level brought me more awareness or more knowledge about why I was here and what life was all about. And I don't know, does that make sense? So in other words, higher conscious to me, it was getting more in tune with who I was. Because when I went through my healing process after my trauma, I'll tell you what, it was an experience, and it took me. I made a choice, and I'm sure that I was I think we're all guided in our lives. We can pay attention to what's being told to us in our heads or in our hearts within ourselves, or not, right? We can let the outer dictate, or we can really pay attention to what's going on inside. But my outer was telling me, Lesley, you're not going to be able to make it, and if you live, you're not going to ever know life like you knew it. That's what the outer world was telling me. But my inner world was saying, are you going to be okay with that? Is that going to be okay with you? How are you going to handle that, Lesley? I'm an incredibly hyper independent person just because of the things I experienced in life. And I said, that's not going to work for me. And so my higher level of conscious at that time came from inside telling me, hey, Lesley, what do you want? What are you going to do now? How are you going to handle your life going forward now? Are you going to succumb to what's going on outside of you? By what other people are dictating to you will be what you are? Or, Les, what are you going to do? Are you going to make those changes? What changes do you want to make? And the thing that scared me to really looking in myself is when somebody said, who are you? And I had no idea because I didn't know what was in here. But when I could hear this little voice saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? I had to really start looking within myself and saying, I want what's coming to me consciously, from whatever levels of consciousness are within me, however you want to look at it. It was, Lesley, what do you want? How do you want to move forward? What is going to make your decisions? What is going to create you? How are you going to find these things out? And I had to take a serious look inside of myself, and I said, you know what? That's not going to be me. That's not going to be that's not going to be my destiny. I know it's not going to be my destiny. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't my destiny. It took me 18 years to get to where I am now after that. But hey, you know what? Those 3 years of getting from when you fall apart and you get to a point where you are like a 5-year-old and you have to start all over again. When God hit that reset button on me, he hit it hard. And I'm lucky to have gotten only using those 3 years, right? But when you saw that had to be God had to hit something really hard in you to say, what are you going to do, Rick? How are you going to move forward in your life? Now what? Now what?
Well, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So a lot of people experienced 9/11 on that day. Very few people were as prepared as me because, like I said, I had been shooting myself up without knowing it to a higher level of music of human consciousness through my explorations in music. And I had noticed that, man, I really like it up there. And what the heck are we doing down here? And what do we have to spend 23 hours and a half hours at a lower level of human consciousness and spend a couple of minutes at a higher? Why not spend more time at a higher level? You know what? So I'm wondering these things. And so a couple of weeks after that 9/11, so maybe it was towards the end of the month when they finally opened up the country again, and I had recited the Jazz for Peace poem, which was the second thing I did. The first thing I did was write the poem. The second thing I did was recite it to over 8,500 people as a headliner at a jazz festival. The next thing that happened was someone called me from Troy, New York, up here. So I was down in Savannah, Georgia, and these people heard about it in Troy, New York, where I had another major concert coming up. And this guy from the Troy Record called me on the phone, and he had heard, he knew who I was and stuff. And he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you. I hear you're playing this concert, blah, blah, blah." And he started asking questions about the poem and what my thoughts were about 9/11 and all this stuff in this interview. And I just happened to say off the top of my head, I said, if we just take our greatest qualities, if we were to just embrace our greatest qualities, such as artistry and creativity and humanity and intellectuality, and all of these great qualities that we have as human beings, if we were to embrace those qualities collectively, we would have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. And he just recorded it on his recorder. We were talking by phone, but he was obviously recording it, because when the article came out, I saw the whole Jazz for Peace poem. How could he have written it that fast, And all this stuff. So anyway, that comes out in an article. Well, that got picked up by all the famous quotes websites. And the next thing I knew, that quote, not even my poem, but that sentence that I happened to say in the article, was all over the world in 40 languages. You can find it in Russian, you can find it in Lithuanian, famous quotes websites, and they all picked it up. Well, why did they pick that up? Because I didn't know it at the time, but what was I describing? I was describing raising our level of human consciousness. Because when that woman showed me that jealousy is way down here at number 75 or something, you know what I mean? Yet humanity as at 380. You see what I'm saying? So she was rating them all the things I was saying were at very high rating levels, human consciousness rating levels. So what I was simply saying without knowing it was, if we were to raise our level of human consciousness to our potential, because if you look throughout life, if you look at someone like Aristotle, how could Aristotle have said those amazing things if he wasn't operating at that moment anyway at a higher level of human consciousness? How could Plato have said the money, the purpose of money is a means of exchange for a virtuous existence? How far are we away from that, from money? Money, they only use it to bribe politicians and do wars and all kinds of it. That's what we're doing with money. That's a way low level of human consciousness, what we're doing with money. But what Plato described was for a virtue. In other words, money was to be used as a medium of exchange for a higher level, to reach our highest level of human consciousness, to do the exact opposite of what we're doing. And he said it thousands of years ago. So, in other words, all I was saying is we need to embrace that which raises our level of human consciousness. And today I have learned that that's what I was saying. So now I can tell you directly that is the solution. And all of the ideas that will come from that higher level of thinking.
I understand what you're saying, and to me, it's higher levels of consciousness are the words that you're using. To me, it would be higher levels of self-awareness, higher levels of really understanding who we are, on the inside, really taking into consideration, we don't know where everybody else is. We're not cookie cutters. We're all uniquely created. Things that we experience in life, we all deal with or handle or see within our own unique eyes, right? It's not, nobody will ever see the same thing exactly the same, because of where we are in our lives, what we've experienced, and how the choices that we've made. So I think that's really it's really observant. It's really observant. Self-awareness to me was key. Really.
Well, we can catch ourselves even. Yeah. Like we can stop first of all, we're all human. So we all have the potential for low levels of, we all have it. I mean, any of us can be jealous. It's easy to get jealous of somebody or resentful or all that kind of stuff. But if we catch ourselves and say, I'm feeling that, but it's a low level of human consciousness. Do I want to embrace it? Do I want to go down there and stay down there? No, I want to maybe recognize that this is a lower level of human consciousness, but how do I embrace the higher level and maybe rid myself of that normal feeling that we have at a feel things at a lower level.
That's exactly what I talk about when I mean, I have my Life Made Easier podcast, which is this, but then I also have a learning platform that I'm putting together, and it's Living from the Inside Out. And what you just said is exactly what I am trying to create and show people, is that, yeah, you experience these negative emotions in your interactions or within life, but if you, instead of reacting, if you just observe it, just look at it and say, how can I utilize this to better me, for my own personal betterment? I can either let it make me better, or I can use it to make me better. And that's exactly what I did when I went through my healing process. That I looked at things and I started looking at things. I just observe. I don't judge anything, but I can't say never, because I'm human, but it certainly is less than it ever was before, that I don't judge stuff. I'll look at something and I'll say, how am I going to let that affect me? But if I'm not conscious, if I'm not consciously aware that that's what it is, it's an opportunity, right? Then I lose control. Then I lose my shit, Rick. That's when I start losing it, right? But
we all are prone. We are all susceptible. We're all susceptible. That's why we have to be cognizant that what is our goal? Our goal is not to permanently reside down there in the doldrums. Our goal is to recognize that it's normal for us to go down there. In fact, you see it. You look out your window, you see it all over the place. Turn on your computer, and you see people bombing each other and all kinds of crazy stuff. But how do we collectively embrace our greatest qualities? And that's where the things like the arts and culture come in, because we are not utilizing that. It's a bad cycle, because we're looking at, people are looking at what I've done, but then they're saying, well, it's just the arts and culture entertainment, so how could it really? But it's not, because they don't even know the potential of the arts and culture themselves, because they've only been using it to listen to sugary pop songs, or commercial music on commercials that helps them drink more beer. You know what I mean? So they don't know the potential. So it's a catch-22. Until they know the potential of the arts and culture, they can't take seriously the accomplishments and achievements that have already taken place. And that's what's so extraordinary.
Why do people just overlook? Like, for me, music helped me understand what I was feeling. It helped me feel things, and then I had words that I could relate to, right? The words in the song, I would feel something in my body, and then I could start really thinking about, oh, this is this is that. That's how I learned how to feel again, actually. But it was through music. But what I think is important to what you're saying, that I think is really important for people to understand, arts and culture in all facets, in all forms, whether it's painting, music, sculpture, architect, whatever it is, it's an expression of self. It's so beautiful. Arts and cultures are so beautiful. Acting, plays, dancing, the theater, because it's an internal expression of somebody being shown to others. And that's why it moves us so much. And I think so many people miss it. They miss it. They just like, wow, that was a great experience, because they're looking at just that outer perspective. But they're not taking the time to say, why is this affecting me in this way? Why do I feel this way? Right? Because there's something internal that it's coming into contact with to better them, if they just look a little deeper within them, right? Just look a little deeper. I love music. I love the theater. I love architecture. I love history. I like different. And what's interesting to me is, when we go, like when you travel and you go to somebody else's country, part of what you go for is to learn more about the way that they live, and that is an expression of self, which is another form of art, right? I mean, it's everywhere. I don't think people understand. It's just everywhere. And
Well, a couple of things. One, I was in Uganda once, and these people, I played a concert in Uganda, and actually, I have a famous song in Uganda because the musicians, the African musicians, took one of my songs and they play it in their rotation of their hit. You know, when they play their songs every week for in the clubs there, the clubs of Uganda. One of my songs is in their rotation, so people from Uganda come here and they think a song I wrote was, you know, just one of the famous pop songs of the United States, which it was not a hit in the United States because, you know, I wasn't signed to Puff Daddy or whoever, but it's a hit down there in Uganda. So it's crazy. But anyway, I was down there and I was doing this concert and everything, and the people wanted to take me to where the Nile River began. So they took me to the start of the Nile River, and I said, I had no idea the Nile River started in Uganda. Yes, we're going to take you there. And I swam right at the beginning of the Nile. They were very concerned because they thought I was going to get, you know, an alligator or whatever, something was going to happen. I said, look, you can't take me here and then I can't swim. So just keep an eye on me. I'm going to take a swim and hopefully I'll survive it. But anyway, I'm down there now in that region of the beginning of the Nile River, where the Nile River starts, with these African people. And they're asking me what I want to do, kind of, because someone wants to show me a possible hospital that they're building or some kind of a healing center in the region. Take a look at it, see if I could, Jazz for Peace could have just something to do with it and other stuff. And there's a man, literally looked like 100-year-old man. I mean, a very, very old man. No one knows. I had no idea how old he was. Standing and staring at me with the biggest smile on his face you have ever seen. And he's standing there and he's staring at me as if he knew I was coming and he knows that I'm going to come to him and ask him. And sure enough, because his energy was so powerful, he's sitting there and he's standing there and they're asking me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to know who that guy is over there. See that guy? Who is that guy? Oh, that's blah, 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 blah. I said, well, I want to go and talk to him. So they bring me over to him, of which he knows I'm coming. He's like, no biggie for him. Smiling at me. What? And I'm like, you know, what's this one? And they said, well, here's what I want to do. This guy, he lives over here. I want to talk to him and find out what life was like in Uganda in 1912 or whatever, because he was alive. So we go to his house, and he has many wives and many children and many grandchildren. You know, it's very different life than anything we ever lived. And I asked him, what was life like in 1925 in Uganda? You know, no electricity, no running water, no this, no that. He said it was glorious. I was shocked me because you thought it would be primitive, right? Oh, it was, we couldn't do anything. You know, we were struggling. He said it was wonderful. Well, what was so great about it? He said we woke up in the morning and there was food everywhere. So in other words, these people did not go, they were probably living at a higher level of human consciousness than we are now. Because you have people now that go to jobs that they don't like all day long just so they can wake up in the morning and have food. This guy had food everywhere. So, of course, they had all day to embrace the arts and culture and their paintings and their whatever they did. They had all day to embrace their indigenous dances and all the stuff that they did. So he loved this time that we think is primeval. He thought it was the greatest. So I'm looking at, wow, look at where we have fallen to. Right? We have fallen. We're way below where he was, waking up with surrounded by food, can do no job, do whatever you want to do. But here's the solution. Here's where the thing it gets good. Okay. We have been in a what would you call it? A century of where there's billionaires and you interview them and they all say the same thing. How did you become a billionaire? I became a billionaire not by going after my passion in life. Wow, why didn't you do that? Because I recognize if I go after my dream and my passion, I'll end up broke and homeless. So I went after that which was profitable, and I became passionate about that which was profitable. Well, that's what you had to do at that time in those days in our, I don't know what they called it, the Industrial Revolution, right? So that was a plus. But now we're reaching a new level. Now we're reaching a changeover. And this change, I am on the precipice of, because when I grew up, I was admiring all these great people. I was admiring a Martin Luther King. I was admiring a John Coltrane. I was admiring a Da Vinci, like we talked about, a Vincent van Gogh, a Mozart, right? Except these people lived very tragic lives. They produced great things for our benefit. They suffered and paid a price, a lot of them, Jesus. I mean, look what happened to him. So the point is, we came up to here, but I noticed, and I was like, well, I'm probably not going to live very long either, because I'm sorry, these are the people that I aspire to be like. I want to, I want to, that's who I admire. So I don't know what's going to happen. But guess what? I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm not starving to death. I mean, I may be the world's most underpaid human being based on achievement. I don't know. There's people who say it. But I'm alive, and I'm not, I'm not homeless, and I'm not broke. So something's going on. Well, what's going on? What's going on is technological advancement. And the coming advancements may, Lesley, this is where my good news comes in, and I know you want some good news, may be creating a moment in time where to be a billionaire, we no longer have to give up, throw our passions to the wayside, and chase after only that which is profitable. What if we went from billionaire to visionaire? A person who goes after what he is meant to go after in his spirit, because we're all individual. We all have something equally as fascinating as and important to give to the world, if only given the chance. If only we're not going to starve to death and be homeless. We have something special and unique and amazing, every single one of us. None of us are less than the other in that world. So now we all have this chance to do that, but we can't survive. But guess what? What happens if?
Hold on. I'm listening to you, but I'm so until you hit that, until you said, but what if? No, there's no but. Don't but yourself, because here's what I think, where I'm resonating with you. It's absolutely true. Inside each and every one of us is a core being with a passion and a meaning, because we come here, our souls come here with very significant purposes. We are here for a very significant reason. And can you live that passion, that inner passion, and create a life that is fulfilling and have all that you want? Absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. Well, then people are going to say, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? Well, you know what? That's what manifestation's all about. People talk about manifest this, manifest that, blah, 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 because it's going to fill your whim in your moment, right? God giveth and God taketh away, right? But if you are working from your inner core soul, like you were saying, that inner passion, and that is what you are expressing out into the world to better yourself and to better others, whatever you want comes to you, because but you have to utilize that divine guidance. If you don't do it that way, your soul's going to keep spinning through these life cycles and until it learns that lesson that we are here. Manifestation is possible because they are divine gifts. God's not a vending machine just to give us whatever we want. That's for us to utilize to create and to prosper in our lifetime, through manifestation, through our dreams, through our desires, by seeing what we want, like you with peace, jazz for peace. you saw what you wanted and it's supporting you. Vic, if you want to make more money, you just ask for it. If you want more money or you want a way to express it more, you have to ask for it, but you have to believe you're worthy of it, right? But you have to have this connection and that relationship to be able to do that. That's my take.
Well, what I really wanted at that moment on that rooftop was achievement. That's what I really wanted. I wanted to do something that I knew was possible with music, and that is to unite people in a positive way and show a foundation of how we can overcome all of these low level of human consciousness things that are dragging us down into the mud. And so what I started to do was achieve 850 benefit concerts. Well, there was no such thing as a benefit concert series before Jazz for Peace. No such thing. Every now and then there was a Live Aid or there was a this or a that, one-off, you know what I mean? But there was no such thing. But I just kept doing them and doing them and doing them. And then after a while, there were hundreds and hundreds of benefit concerts. There were educational programs in the schools. There were instrument donations. And these things took me all around the world, 9 times just to Africa alone, as many people are noting now. And it even took me to the United Nations, where I brought Israeli, Palestinian, and Americans together. And then I realized, wow, after 24 years, I might even be able to solve all the problems in the world if people would only consider the solutions that I've bounced into on this journey, because this has been a very unique journey and has taken me to places and areas where I was, learning things that the average person doesn't get an opportunity to learn, like the story I just told you about Uganda. How many people are going to run into that old man down there in the middle of Uganda? Well, I'm the only Mzungu he's ever going to see down there. There's no ever going to see this guy. You know what I mean?
But you got to back up a bit, because I think that you jumped into the benefit part and you didn't really explain that aspect of what you're doing. So you got to kind of back up a little bit, Rick, and start
part of
with that
living
part, because people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what you did and why you did it with Jazz for Peace is that you started to create these benefit events. So you got to explain that before, because the rest of us don't.
I redefine. I know I'm only the piano player, but I redefined peace as we know it. Because up until now, peace was, flowers, and it was, give peace a chance. And I love all those guys and I love what they did. But I had to take this mantle and run with it. They had given me all this incredible foundation with all the people from John Lennon to Gandhi to this one to that one to Martin Luther King. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to redefine the entire word. And what I was able to do by redefining peace is say, listen, I'm going to use my music to help outstanding causes in more ways than just funds, because funds aren't the only way to help an outstanding cause. In fact, funds may enslave the outstanding cause if that's the only way you help them. They need to be more publicized. They need to be more befriended. They need to become more prestigious. Even prestige, though, is not a high level of human consciousness, and the woman told me that. But nevertheless, I know that by making them more prestigious, I'm also helping them. So it was called an empowerment tree, and we started growing an empowerment tree for outstanding causes, because they would write us a letter saying how incredible it was. So what I would do is I would collect all those letters, and they're on a page where everyone can see them. And the webpage is called jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about. And if you go to that page, you'll see, you won't hear from me. I don't say a word on it. You'll hear from 850 of the world's most outstanding causes, okay, telling you what Jazz for Peace has done with them at zero. So this is why I'm so positive. If you go to that page, you'll see what Jazz for Peace did with zero. Imagine if world peace was funded at 100 instead of 0. Imagine if war was not funded at 100% and peace was not funded at 0%, okay? And to do that, you'd at least have to go to 1%. And let me tell you something. If we all collectively take funding for world peace just to 1% from where it is now at 0, you won't even recognize this planet at 1%. And if we took it to 100, forget, I can't even imagine it at 100%. We're funding war at 100% now. You realize that. trillions of dollars. 3 trillion just on what I addressed in 2002, which we're now reaching the 25th anniversary of, when I brought Israeli, Palestinian, and American jazz musicians to the United Nations. And there was an Israeli next to me on this side and a Palestinian on this side, and all three, and I'm an American, and we were all saying, we can do this. We can overcome this. We can overcome this. And had we built on it, that's $3 trillion right there that was spent in on something that, while peace was being funded at zero. So my point is, if we do, these are solutions, because if, like I said, you look at that page, now here's where the changeover comes, okay? If you look at that page again, I've already said it a million times, but jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about. You look at the page, you see what we did at zero, okay? What the difference between that, I'm a visionary, and a billionaire, is that a billionaire cannot get one of those pages because I spent 24 hours a day doing that, not becoming a billionaire. To be a billionaire, you got to spend time being a billionaire. You can't amass a collection of achievements like that. You can't do that. Your collection of achievements is going to be maybe a software program that you produced, or you somehow got distribution for, or whatever it is that you did. It's not going to be that, okay? So what do you do if you're a billionaire? Someone will come up to you and say, hey, for a small fee, we'll make you look like that's you. But they can't put that page up. We haven't seen a page like that on a billionaire's website. If you find me one, let me know. I have never gone to a billionaire's website who calls himself a philanthropist and seen that page, which I did at zero. Now, if a billionaire has that page, it should be 1 billion times greater than mine, except I can't find it at all. So my point is, this is what our world needs. We need to transition from 200 billionaires to 200 million visionaries. And how are we going to do it? We're going to do it by using technology, AI, all of these advancements in the right way so that we don't have to go and do a job that we don't like. Instead, we can take the money that's being made from technology and use it to go after our goals and dreams and do the opposite of what those billionaires did to become billionaires. Nothing against that, but that's the old way that we have to change over, and we have to utilize every opportunity, all this technology, use it to our advantage so that the visionaire survives. Because if we have 200 billion, if you look at that page on your computer and you imagine 200 billion of those pages, million, let's just say, I could say 2 billion, but 2 billion would be amazing. Let's just say 200 million of those pages, and that's not a lot. There's 8.6 billion people on the planet. So 200 million of that page, you're not going to recognize this planet. So many problems will be addressed at profoundly positive ways by so many different corners and areas. 9 ways to Sunday, as that politician would say. I forgot his name, Schumer. If you attack a problem 9 ways to Sunday instead of, something that's, that's holding us back, you will see phenomenal change for the better. And so, like I'm saying, we need to go from a few hundred billionaires, which is where we are now, to a few 100 million visionaries, which are people that get to survive, get to go after their dreams and passions and somehow survive.
I see your point, Rick, but I also have something that I want to add to that. And it might be a little bit against what you're saying, but first I want you to say, I see what you're saying. And I agree that the world needs to be on more of an equal playing field, is what I hear you saying. That people, really need to be on more, that if this happened, people would be more on an equal playing field. But I also know that whatever we want, we can have in our life. that for me, I know that whatever I want in my life, I can have. And it's been through the last 18 years that I realized it. I also realized that a lot of what I want that I'm frustrated that I didn't have or I don't have yet, I get in my own freaking way. I get in my own way all the time. And sometimes I just have learned that I have to just step out of my own way, get out of my own way, stop forcing things, stop trying to achieve something, and just really flow. Because when I flow with what I know of myself and my personal inner truth, instead of the outer world dictating to me how it should be, but I flow from the inside, things are coming to me much better, a lot quicker, and I feel more positive about the direction that I'm taking my life. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it makes sense
I
to
see
me.
it as part of your visionary journey.
Right.
Because as you go down that direction that you're describing right now, you will infect more people in a positive way. That journey of yours is going to have a positive effect on others. And
I hope
that
so.
is all part of this lifting of all boats towards a higher level of human consciousness.
I agree. Well, Rick, this has been such a great conversation. I'm so grateful for you. I don't know how you want to end this. Do you want to play something, or do you want to? I'm wondering. Do you want to just quote? I mean, do you want to just share your poem?
Well, what I could do and what I usually do, I make up something, I recite the poem, and I make up something completely new for this moment in time, whatever I'm feeling, whatever emotion is coming through me from our conversation, from your energy, from the moment in time, from this day, from I don't know, the light that's coming in the window, I don't know. Just something completely original that could never be repeated while I'm reciting the poem.
Okay, we have just a few minutes, so go ahead and
Okay,
share.
let's see if we can do it in a few minutes here. Okay. I hear jazz for peace. Coming through the trees. And my heart feels like a celebration. I see the light, and I want to follow. Inspired by the past contributions, those that came before. Lay the groundwork for us to build on this universal language that is a gift for all men. when we speak it. People are inspired by the creativity and artistry. It stands for peace and love. Humanity. Intelligence that leads to reaching the potential that we have in our souls. So we can raise our total conscience, see the gift of giving is our greatest privilege. I hear jazz.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
Well, Rick, I just want to thank you again for sharing with us, and expressing yourself in utilizing the fact that you are your own unique individual. This is how you see things, what you see in your life, how you better not only the yourself but the world, your contribution to better the world. And I think that that's important for us to understand, that that's why we're all here, and that's our responsibility. And I thank you so much.
My pleasure, Lesley. Thank you.
So do you have any final words? I know that what I was thinking as you were playing, I thought, what if somebody wanted to get in contact with you down the road because they wanted you to play, they liked what they heard today, they wanted you to come and participate in one of their events. How would they reach you?
You just said my final word. You said, what are my final words? But I realized there was only one word. And then you just said it. And I have a final word, and that word is participate. Participate. If you participate, if you go to that link that I told you the 1,000 times, the same thing, you'll see jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about. People look at it and say it's too good to be true. But those are all people who did one thing and one thing only. They decided to participate. So if you want to participate, our email address is info@jazzforpeace.org. And you can always send us an email. And there is a place for you, no matter where you are, at whatever level, to participate in this movement to go from a handful of billionaires to hopefully countless amounts of visionaries, people who are just affecting others in a positive way that's so infectious that we just can't help but climb out of our problems and embrace a higher level of human consciousness. And this can mean me coming to your city or state. I believe you're in Boulder, and we've done Jazz for Peace in Boulder, and it was phenomenal, an unbelievable event. People went crazy and loved it. So wherever you are out there, folks, contact us at info@jazzforpeace.org. Sometimes just a little something you say in your little email to us could be the seedling of an empowerment tree that helps an outstanding cause in your community. Or we also have, of course, the Jazz for Peace podcast, where you can tell your story to us, and loads of other things. So just get a hold of us, and we'll find a way for you to participate at your comfort zone, whether it be volunteer, just a member of the audience, could be anything.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. And again, I really appreciate it. I really enjoy our conversations every time. It always enlightens me, makes me really think hard. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode of Life Made Easier podcast, and I hope that that everybody benefited from the information here today about how to take something, that the traumas or the uncertainty or the inner turmoil that's caused from our outer experiences, and really utilize that information to better yourself instead of becoming bitter. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you again on the next episode of Life Made Easier podcast. Take care.
Hello, this is Lesley Pazdzioch. I want to thank you for watching this video. And if you found the information in this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel so you can receive notifications when new content is released. To learn more about how you can begin putting these principles into your life, living from the inside out, please visit my website at lesleypazdzioch.com. Thank you again for watching. I look forward to sharing more quality videos on this channel in the near future, and I hope to see you there.